Hi, you guys. A very big welcome back to the UK Beef Magazine podcast. You're here with me, your co-host Z, and I'm joined as ever by my co-host Neale Cranwell, Robbie and Chant. How you guys doing? You right?
Yeah.
I'm eating again, unfortunately.
You're always eating, always chewing.
Jeff's
He's always eating. Like, guys on YouTube, always glad to see you. Today, we've got a very special guest on the podcast. His name is Jeff Surette. I hope I've said that right. He's a prep coach. He's all the way in Boston, Massachusetts. Mate, could you introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about yourself. Yeah, take it away, mate.
Hey, what's up, guys? Glad to be here. Yeah, I just I started working out when I was younger. I was a heavy kid, then I became anorexic, and I was like, this is crazy. Now I'm just skinny. So then I just saw in the magazines, I saw the guys with the muscles, and I was like, man, that's fascinating. So, I just started reading as much as I can and learning as much as I can. Within 4 years, I was about 80 pounds heavier, and then I just got into competing. But I was always just learning as much as I can. And then, by default, I just started helping some people, and, they were able to make some progress. So that's how I transitioned into actually coaching. I've had a pretty decent career as an amateur bodybuilder. But doesn't always work out in your favor. Sometimes you show up a little bit off, but, not for lack of trying, and definitely never swayed my learning. So I've been very fortunate to talk to some of the best in the industry and work with some of the best. So hopefully I can share some knowledge with you guys, and it's an informative show.
Awesome.
Cool. I just want to know, Jeff, what do you hate being called more? Do you hate being called a fat bastard or a skinny rake? Which pisses you off more?
Well, the problem is I always feel skinny and I always feel fat, I
Good answer.
Now I have that complex where I'm never big enough and I'm never lean enough. So
yeah.
I just try to find that happy medium. But I tell you, being a
bodybuilder,
being a bodybuilder and walking around typically in the 240s, 250s, and someone calling me skinny is probably the worst thing in business.
Okay, yeah.
It's disaster.
And so where you said you was anorexic, is that for a long period of time? Was that like, and how to transition through anorexia and get away from that? It's actually really hard. It's not just as easy as sort of it rolls off the tongue, is it?
So what had happened was, I don't have like the best home life. So, I was made fun of by actually like my family and friends and people actually at school and stuff. So it was very hard on me. So I had a lot of self-confidence issues. And I didn't really quite understand nutrition or anything like that. So to me, basically it was stop eating, and that's how you lose weight, because eating was what was causing me to be, quote unquote fat, and this is why people were making fun of me. So I was like, well, if I stop eating and I basically just run until I pass out, I'll get skinny. And basically that's what I did. I mean, I did that probably, straight for about 6 months. But that was at that point where, I saw one of like the muscle mags or something like that. And I was like, wow, that's a better look than just being skinny.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, well, what can I do to get there? And I found out that, hey, not eating is, bad. So from that point on, I just started trying to learn as much as I can. And it was very difficult to transition from, not eating to making myself eat. And it's actually something I struggle with today, being a larger bodybuilder that doesn't have that signaling in his head that says, hey, you're hungry, and it just got turned off back then. And even now, if I'm busy, I'm not hungry every 2 hours like I'm supposed to be, even with my metabolism ramped up. So it's just, I have to create that habit to make sure that, I'm doing what I need to do. But it's something I still struggle with to a certain degree. I mean, I do like to eat, so, that helps. But, if I'm busy, I stop eating, and my mind just doesn't say, hey, eat. So, you know, there were some, you know, longer lasting effects from it, but I mean, it's not detrimental or anything, of course, but it was difficult. It was difficult.
Do you take any supplements, like, is it B6 to increase appetite? Is that right? I can't remember if it's B6, B12.
I mean, I've tried a number of different things to stimulate appetite. Right now, MK677 kind of helps. But, you know, I was using the GHRPs, and everyone's like, oh, I'm ravenous with this. And I took it, and it didn't really do anything for me. So
those are peptides. Are they peptides? Sorry, I'm trying to.
Yeah, some of the peptides, you know, like anything that will increase ghrelin, right, will spark appetite. But for me, it just, you know, I still don't really get that effect as much. MK677, I do. So that's kind of what I'm toying with these days. You know, cycling that with my growth to keep my appetite up. So
it sounds like an assault rifle. That's what it sounds like. I'm gonna have to get me some of that. That sounds really good.
Robbie, it's the last thing you need, mate. You need the opposite.
Can you help me with my anorexia, please, Jeff? I actually need to get it. How do I actually get it?
Robbie ate his former anorexic self.
Yes, I did. Inside is a screaming Ethiopian trying to get out.
Oh wow!
But seriously, that I mean, I can give some comments on that MK because I've used that, and it's supposed to be a growth hormone releaser, and that's what it was sort of touted as. But I don't, to be honest, like the SARMs, like the GHRP 6 and 2, and those that have been about the peptides, I've tried them because they're a really cheap alternative, and they're legal, and they're a cheap alternative to growth hormone, but they don't do anything. They don't do anything at all. I did notice a little bit of appetite with GHRP 6, but it would go after about maybe for 3 or 4 days of you continued using it, it would go. But this MK, which Jeff has mentioned, I've used that, and I've not used it for the growth hormone release because I don't think it does a huge amount there, but your appetite's insane, like insane. And not just like you're a pig and you want to just eat all the wrong food. You just want to eat food. And
wow.
like, I wake up in the night because I have to take mine in before I go to bed. So I take it any earlier. I'm just like crazy to eat all day long. So I take it in the night. I've got like a really good level of increased appetite all through the day. So literally 2 hours or an hour and a half, I'm ready to eat like more broccoli and more of the boring foods as opposed to, you know, if I've used in the past like things like Dynabol, which then I've eaten and it's like I didn't eat a thing, and I'll eat and I'll just eat too much, and it turns bad, the food, and then people blame it on the drug. But I don't necessarily think it's the drug's fault. It's the wrong food you eat alongside it. But the MK is just really good if you're trying to put on a lean bulk and you're trying to like eat more of the right food. You're just really hungry for it. But I found I like, for me, it works that strong that I would do 1 day on and then leave it a day or so. So it'd be almost like every other day or every third night that I'd use it. Otherwise, I'm just too hungry, and it kind of builds up where I'm going nuts, and like my kids' cupboards are getting looked at and that kind of thing, you know. And that's after I've eaten all my own food. But I mean, Jeff does my diet, and I'm on 8 meals, so that's food as well. So you need a pretty solid appetite to keep up with that amount of food. And sometimes there's not enough daylight to get it all done, to get it all eaten. But, you know, so that's why I'm eating now. So it's Jeff's fault if you bored of seeing me chuckling.
Good job. Yeah, with the MK, you know, I also take it at night for 2 reasons. One, it actually helps me sleep because I'm not really a big sleeper. But it just, you know, my sleep is a lot better. But then when I wake up, you know, I do have that hunger. I know for a fact, because I check my blood glucose on a regular basis, that after, I would say probably around like the 4 to 6 week mark, it varies for a lot of people, you know, you'll start seeing an increase in your actual fasted blood glucose. So I feel that if you use it for too long or too often, you know, it can impact insulin sensitivity. So I was using it just on Saturdays and Sundays and running growth Monday to Friday. But I'm now going to start toying with alternating. So 1 day growth, 1 day MK. So that way, you get the exogenous growth 1 day, and then you'll spark some natural growth hormone from endogenous sources the following day. It's going to vary from person to person because not going to go to super, it's not going to overdo what you naturally produce. So if you don't produce a substantial amount of growth hormone, it's not going to create extra growth hormone. It's only going to help you secrete the maximum that your body can actually produce. So there's a lot of studies that say that, it's like taking 2 IUs of growth, but I mean, if you just don't produce that much, it's not going to have that effect. But some people have phenomenal results with it, whereas others don't. But for me, just the sleep aspect, because I'm used to sleeping 2 or 3 hours a night total, which is certainly not good for me. Yeah, so now I'm sleeping quite a bit more. I'm getting my 6 to 8 hours a night.
That's good.
So my recovery is going to be exponentially increased just for that aspect alone. Plus,
have you always had this sleep disorder sort of thing, not being able to sleep, or if is it too much porn on your front?
my mind's just always busy. Like I'm always thinking.
Okay. All right.
I can set the porn off at any time.
Okay, that's good.
But the mind, the mind keeps going.
All right.
It's just, sometimes I just got to leave the TV on just for background noise so I can just shut off my mind for a bit and just zone out and sleep. I've been like that since college, so I just kind of get used to it. There was a time when I was working 2 full-time jobs, training twice a day and doing 2 hours of cardio. So I was literally busy 22 hours a day getting ready for my show in 2014. So you just kind of get used to not sleeping, which is not good, but your body will adapt.
Yeah.
So I'm still trying to readjust from that because, it's been a few years, of course, but, that's a significant change in the body. So.
And people don't realize like the long-term effect of doing competition, or the after effect, should I say, of doing the competition. So like Jeff said there with the sleep, like almost everyone runs into this, like, you're overtraining day after day, and you should sleep more because you're training so hard, and yet you sleep a hell of a lot less, and you get in this pattern of sleeping less. And it's like 4 a.m. and you're like, screw it, I've been tossing around in bed, I'm going to get up and do my cardio because then my day starts. And you're so fed up of not being able to get back to sleep. And I've suffered with that. But I mean, lots of people want to do a competition or their first show, but they don't quite know what comes with it or what comes after it, because you get yourself in this habit because you might be doing it for 4 months, 5 months, or depends how long your prep is. And then this is the afterburn of what you've been doing. It carries on, and yet you're not in prep, but your body can't sink out of this pattern that you're in. And that's quite hard going, because when the adrenaline's gone of this competition on the horizon, you've absolutely knackered. It's like the adrenaline keeps you buzzing along. And when it's gone and you haven't got it there, you're just heavy as hell. And that's what I find is like the looming bit. But I must say big kudos to Jeff in where he can't sleep and he's in America. It's obviously fantastic it was fantastic for me in England because our time zone difference. Well, if I was competing, he should be well fast asleep. I could text him at any time or WhatsApp him, and he'd be straight back to me within half an hour on like the days that coming into the show. So he was there when the critical times, even though he's in a different country. So look him up, people, in the UK, but don't beat me on his advice.
Cool.
I mean, that certainly made it a lot easier. When I have clients competing, I'm always available. So if there's a time zone change, I make that adjustment regardless.
That's awesome.
But yeah, definitely, not sleeping as much kind of does help with that.
So just go back to where you was talking about the MK and insulin sensitivity, because lots of the viewers that listen to podcasts they hear these words banged around. They haven't really kind of got a grasp as what the benefit of being insulin sensitive or not is, and this has now become quite a hot topic really amongst bodybuilding, where it never used to be hugely concerned about. And I think come along the keto diet, and then these kind of words have sort of bandied around. But if you could explain a little bit more kind of basic terms what it means and why it's a benefit.
Basically, to kind of put it in layman's terms, being when you have insulin resistant, you have your receptor cells, and basically what it is they're tired. So they can't utilize the insulin properly. So what ends up happening is, instead of the nutrients being stored or partitioned appropriately, now they're getting shuttled inappropriately. So you have all this influx of carbohydrates, but the receptors are too tired to basically take that and put it where it belongs. So what you need to do is you need to keep the body insulin sensitive. So, with the receptors, it's basically, you have this worker, right? And you keep throwing him all these bricks and he's got to stack them. Well, when he can't stack them anymore, he's like, all right, well, what do I do? Right? So now you have all this lingering insulin floating around in the body. So now your blood glucose levels are going to be a lot higher, and it's going to cause a whole whack of problems in the body. But what it's going to do is going to start opening up the receptor cells in the fat, right? Because both muscle and fat cells both have insulin receptors. So now it's going to start shuttling it, and you can store an infinite amount of fat on the body. It'll just keep loading it and loading it, loading it. Whereas you can only put so much into a muscle, right? So that's where the problem comes in. If you look at these, overweight people, sometimes their diet's not even that bad. It's just they could have such a bad insulin sensitivity that their body takes on these carbohydrates and it says, I don't know where to put them, right? So we don't have the muscle cells that I want to put it in, so I'm just going to store it, right? Because stored fat is insulation for the body, and it's stored energy, right? So it wants to keep that. It wants to preserve the body. So that's basically where insulin resistance comes from. So you don't want to build up insulin resistance. So in doing so, that's where carb rotation and keeping the cells from being flooded with too much insulin allows the body to utilize it properly. So basically, same worker, throw a bunch of bricks, he puts them in the muscle, then you give him a break. And he says, okay, now he can move some stuff around, throw him some more. He's like, I can still put more, right? So that's insulin sensitivity, right? Because if you just keep throwing it at him, shelves are full.
So how'd you actually give him this break then?
What's that?
How'd you give him the break then? How would your body?
So giving him a break is, giving the body a break from releasing insulin, right? So it's a release, it's a response from the pituitary gland where it's releasing insulin. So basically you back off carbohydrates and you back off from spiking insulin to give them a break, right? And that's how once you start basically relieving the body from having to produce extra endogenous insulin, it doesn't need as much, right? So it's basically like a pump, right? So you're signaling and he's saying, hey, I gotta keep pumping out all this insulin. But when you don't have all those signals, which is the carbohydrates and the sugars, then it doesn't kick that pump on. So now it's giving the body that break, right? Okay. And that's how you get the break, and that's how you start rebuilding insulin sensitivity. That's why you see mini diets are very popular. When people are bulking in the off season, carbohydrates are a lot higher. All of a sudden you start noticing, perhaps I'm not getting pumps the same way. Potentially getting a little softer. And so I go, okay, I'm starting to build up insulin resistance. Let me do a mini diet where I back off my carbohydrates, give my body a break. And then after a couple of weeks, the body resensitizes, and then you can start rebuilding with the carbs and the insulin.
See, now I'm glad I asked you, Jeff, because I've just looked at Z's face through that entire explanation, and I've never seen so much concentration. I thought he was having a dump, to be honest.
I was worried. I thought I got my tits out and stuff, and he was ogling them. That's what I thought.
But that's great info. I mean, Z, because Like, I always use Z as a kind of a benchmark because he's quite new to bodybuilding. So like all of that is going to sound like it was French to him, you know. And now he's taking it in. I can see that was really useful. The question.
No, that's a good with the using the worker as an analogy and giving him a break, and he can only stack so much. It's a good way for me to visualize how that works in that process. And
yeah, that's good.
You know, as a coach or someone from the industry, you know, you need to be able to relay the information because, you know, if I were to explain it to you from, you know, if you've ever listened to, say, Dr. Scott Stevenson, I mean, I'll listen to him and I'll understand half of it, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to go grab a thesaurus and see what he's talking about, you know, you know. So if you can put it into terms where someone can be like, oh, I get it, you know, that's what's key. So when I'm working with Neale and he says, oh, well, why are we doing this? You know, I need to be able to explain to him why we're doing something. So he says, all right, that makes sense. I'm on board. I'm going to do that. You know, if you're a coach and you're working with someone, you say, eat this. Why? Because I said so. I'm the coach. You know, that's not going to work, right? You want someone to understand the why and the reasoning how, because now they can take that, be like, I understand why I'm doing it. I can incorporate it into my lifestyle, and I'm going to be more accepting of it because it makes sense to me, right? So
when you explain it to Neale, I'm just wondering, you know, when you explain it to Neale, do you say, like, sorry, Neale, but half your bricklayers have gone on strike? And is that what you say to him?
With Neale, sometimes
I'm sorry.
Figures.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, one little bricklayer, two little bricklayer. Oh no, bricklayer's done sleepy bye-byes.
So he gets it. That's good. So wait. Just sorry. Just like we're gonna continue on. Jeff's great, but I like what Robbie started there. So I always like to stir the pot a little bit. Jeff, could you tell us what Neale's like as a client? Is he always like? Did you get like the text every I'm hungry, I'm gonna eat someone?
So as a client, Neale's great. But like all clients, you know, there's going to be times where there's communication errors, right? And it's not so much him, it's the distance. So, you know, when he was at the show and he has bad service, I'm like, I need you to send me pictures so I can see. Well, he's not getting that message for like 3 hours. So I'm like, I don't know what's going on, right? So the biggest issue with him was really just right about the day of the show. It's like, all right, I need you to send me pictures. I need blood glucose at these times, but he's not getting the messages. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, what is he doing? You know, I told him to do this. Why am I not getting this stuff? But I'm not realizing that he's not getting my messages. I'm not getting his messages except for like 2 hours later. But working through prep, Neale's difficult, not so much as a person, but just learning his body. He burns through food very quickly. And then as you start feeding him more and the metabolism gets higher, he burns through more food. You know, throw a ton of carbs at him. And it seems like his insulin's, you know, his blood glucose is stable. And then all of a sudden he walks across the room and he goes hypo. It's like, Jesus, you know, which is good. I mean, he's very efficient. But no, I mean, I wish I had more clients. You know, I never had to worry about him training hard, which I do with some clients. You know, they're like, oh, I'm killing it in the gym. I'm like, I've seen you train. Like, I know you're not. But I know for a fact that he is, you know, especially when he posts his videos and stuff. So, you know, Neale and I, we're very like-minded in a lot of things. So it's a very good relationship. It's very smooth. Like I said, I couldn't ask for, you know, the only thing would be just the communication, but I mean, that's not his fault. It's just, you know, technology. It doesn't always cooperate, but I mean, aside from that, I mean, everything's pretty smooth. I really have no complaints working with him. It's actually quite a pleasure. So.
Nice.
Oh, up yours, see? Get that.
I wanted some dirt. I wanted you to say, well, I had to stop him from eating someone. He was going to murder someone because he was so hungry.
Well, the thing is, you know, it was hard because like every now and then, like he'd be like, I got to tell you, I ate this. But then he sent me pictures, and I'm like, well, I can't complain because you're hot as a rock. So I'm like, okay, well, just try not to do that again.
Yeah.
You know,
And don't use so much Viagra, Neale. It's not good for you.
you know, but when you have a client like that, you know, he's been in the game for a while. When he goes off diet and he cheats, you know, it's generally not the end of the world. And it's not like he was doing it like a week out or anything like that. But, you know, with kids and junk food around, and it happens, you know, it happens to all of us. But with the amount of muscle mass that he carries and the way that his metabolism works, I mean, he burns right through it. So it's like, okay, just keep an eye on it. And it helps because we track the blood glucose. So we're seeing how he's filling out, how he's responding to cheat meals and stuff like that. Because if I give him an influx of calories with sodium and water, and then all of a sudden I'm seeing his trend in his blood glucose and how it stabilizes, how it goes up, how it goes down, it tells me a lot of information. So in actuality, the times that he cheats, it's just more information for me, you know. But I mean, at the same time, I mean, he gets to eat kid cereal. And I mean, the diet overall is not so bad. So.
No, the diet. I mean, the diet's great. I mean, Jeff has pushed the kid. The thing is, when you're eating stuff that you like, you don't feel like you have to cheat. But where Jeff said there, I would like to feel like I'm going to church and confess that I've eaten something. Because, and you know what? Because I've been doing it so long, that keenness that I had when I was like 2 years into competing, as opposed to 20 years, like where I was so meticulous with everything, I've realised that it don't need to be quite so bad. And in fact, the stress or stressing about your diet being so on point and everything weighed to the exact gram, that's how I used to be. And I think the stress of that made the diet much more hard, and then made you feel like there's a lot more things that you're missing out on. So additionally, as I've got older and I've competed, and I'm not gifted whatsoever, but my metabolism is fairly good, and it's definitely good with carbohydrates. But I know if I ate a packet of, you know, biscuits that's in the cupboard, which does happen quite often, I know by tomorrow I might have even lost a pound for doing it. It doesn't always cause me a hardship. But if I was to eat 2 packets of biscuits every night, after a week I would be look like Robbie. So
Yeah.
but yeah, so I think there comes, I think one of the major concerns I noticed with competing that I've learned, that's one of the big things. I think the best thing you can be is consistent, but also try and relieve stress. However that is, stress is such a bitch, because if you don't sleep very well, like Jeff said, a lot of bodybuilders don't sleep very well, and you're stressing as well, your cortisol will be very high, and you'll hold on to water. And a lot of times, you know, us as competitors, we need to see improvements, and whether that's not in the mirror ideally, but on the scale's a really easy way for us to see we're making progress in terms of losing weight, losing body fat. And if you're retaining water because you're stressing about the last decimal point of that bit of chicken that was weighed, and I shouldn't have eaten that extra 2 grams because now I'm off my diet, you know, I don't think it really matters that much. But as long as you can take the diet very seriously, but I don't think you should let it overwork and overrule your life. And you just have to do things like, you know, people go on bodybuilding diets or diets for holidays, and they're on a diet and they do what Jeff said there at the start, which was just sort of starve yourself or go without eating because it will, you know, that's the goal. But I think when you're prepping, you're always worried about where the next meal's coming. You just take a couple of meals spare with you. Like I always take 1 extra with me. So if I know I'm going out for a couple of hours and I'll only need a meal because I'll be back, I'll always take 2. Because it can sit in the cool bag with the other one. It's not going to go bad. And if I get stuck in traffic or something, I'm not going to stress. There'll be no stress there because I'm all prepared. And I think if you just take that extra, like, you know, Boy Scout moment and just be slightly more prepared, then life becomes easier. But I mean, I learned loads with Jeff. I mean, I haven't uncovered lots of the stuff that we'll get Jeff talking about, just purely because it's, you know, I am a bit more old-fashioned in the ways. But I mean, there's other drugs that are out there that we'll come to like DNP, which is supposed to be a huge fat burner. I've got no experience with it whatsoever.
I have.
Oh, you have?
Wow.
Me too.
Yeah, I have. I have.
Oh, go on then. Yeah,
I've-
let's fill your boots. Let's hear about it.
Well, it's actually from TNT. It's from TNT almost. It was found back in I think it's the 1920s or something like that, when all the miners who were mining for explosives basically got really lean and really skinny and really ripped. What the problem is though, it heats up your body. And the problem is, if you heat up your body, i.e., if you have a fever, etc., your enzymes and your bodily enzymes don't work as well, and you eventually die. But the problem with DNP is the fact that it does heat your body up, and with a lot of people, they have no way of actually cooling it down, and that's the problem. If you mix DNP with something like I suppose an upper like amphetamine, for example, it could probably kill you, because you've got no way of cooling down. I mean, literally, you have to know your body inside and out, and also know how much you can take in order to be safe. It does actually work by let's just say burning you up and causing an increase in temperature, because that core increase in temperature will actually allow you to burn more calories. But it's dangerous in the fact there's no way of you regulating your body temperature to pull that back down again. So in that sense, it is actually very, very dangerous, especially to the non-initiated person who's never sort of used it before, because then again, you have to also know how many sort of tablets you can take, which is going to be within your safe zone. So it's one of those things. It's just not worth dying over, if you know what I mean. It definitely isn't worth dying over, and that's the reason they sort of banned it and stuff. And it's actually extremely, extremely difficult to get hold of, and people literally do not want to make it now, because for the simple reason that some people who do take it, for example, do die. So it's a very, very controversial fat burner. It does get you ripped though, but what's the point of being ripped when you're dead? Oh, look at him. Look at that corpse. Bloody hell, it's ripped. Oh, yeah, he looks so good dead, doesn't he? Look at that fella. Fucking hell, look at those abs. Oh, amazing. But,
So,
you know,
what was your experience? Stop waffling on about you dead guys. What's your experience with it then? Did you get ripped? Because you had some work to do. I mean, you're a good test subject.
I'm a good test subject. Yeah, I got pretty ripped on it. I pretty enjoyed it and stuff. But there'd be times when I would actually sweat through a few t-shirts. I'd go and buy another t-shirt because I would sweat straight the way through it. So
What dosing?
I started off, to be honest, I don't even remember the doses. I started off in literally 2 tablets, and I think I actually went up to about 8 to 10. I'm not sure on the average dose. Yeah, well, you know, young and dumb back in the day, you know.
Jesus.
So I think what happened, obviously, over time is you build up a resistance to it as well. So
what's your then, Jeff? What's your, because dosage wise, I've heard something like a small dose, like 200. Is it micrograms or?
Yeah. So you know, let me first kind of explain kind of a little bit how it works. So it works at the mitochondria level. So here's another analogy, just to kind of make it simple.
Nice.
Think of like a high horsepower car with a manual transmission, right? It has all this power in the engine, right? But you keep slipping the clutch. So there's nothing getting to the wheels. So you have all this energy that's just getting burnt off as heat at that clutch, right? So that's what's happening. So you have the body trying to produce all this ATP at the mitochondria level, but the body can't utilize it, right? So it just gets burnt off as body heat. So the body temperature rises. And in doing so, you know, the metabolism goes up. There's a lot of misinformation out there, unfortunately, but there's, you know, it's come to light a little bit more prevalent these days, where people are starting to realize that low dose is a lot safer. So, you know, I've tried many different amounts. So it typically comes in, there's 2 different kinds. There's the powder, and then it's like a crystalline. I've never tried that one, but the powder, it comes in 200 to 250 milligram capsules. So basically, It's got a 36-hour half-life, so it builds up over time. So the problem with it is people will take it and like, I'm supposed to get hot. I'm not hot. Well, I'll take more. But the problem is the mechanism that it creates the body heat in the body, you can't cool that down. But it's not like a traditional fever. So it's not like, oh, let me drink some ice water, let me take a cold bath, and it's going to go down. It's because it's that energy is getting produced and creating excess heat. So that mechanism is going to keep going no matter what until the drug works out of the body. So, you know, when the body has a fever, you know, you can cool it down, the fever comes down. When you try to take DNP and cool yourself down by taking a cold shower, drinking some cold water, that's not going to work because that mechanism is just still going. That engine's still cranking out that power, and it's that clutch is just slipping. Boom, body heat, body heat, body heat. So that's the problem, and that's the real danger with DNP is people don't understand what it's actually doing in the body, so they think more is better. That's the mentality. More is better. More is better. Right? It's a very efficient drug. It's going to work no matter what. I think the best route to go would be 1 a day, low dose, so it doesn't interfere with your normal daily activity. I think that the less carbohydrates you have, because carbohydrates are going to try to be used as fuel from the body, and that's going to increase the body heat. So limit carbohydrates. You want to take in a little bit of fruits to replenish liver glycogen. That's going to get rid of that little bit of fogginess when you get tired. But basically, you want to replenish minerals because it's going to deplete minerals. So you get some colloidal minerals, some multivitamins. Here in the States, you know, we have the Powerade Zero, so you have your electrolytes. And you want to stay hydrated, right? Hydration is what keeps the body cool, right? And that's what keeps the body from overheating. That's what keeps the body from functioning properly. You want to take some vitamin C because it can deplete vitamin C from the eyes and create cataracts, but you'd have to be at a high dose for that.
Whoa.
But it works. It definitely works. You know, I don't think it's a long-term solution, although there's been case studies where people have used it for 6 months to a year straight, you know, with minimal time off. I think the body adapts to it slightly, whereas I think after a 3-week dosing, it's good to take time off. If I were to use it in a prep, I would never use it. You know, I prep long. I prep at least 20 weeks. I wouldn't use it more than twice. So that'd be 6 weeks. I have a 20-week prep. I would always have minimum 3 weeks in between because I think and this is just speculation on my end, so I've been using it for on and off for years. And I think that there's a prolonged effect after you stop where the metabolism is still higher. I have nothing to base that on except for personal experience where my metabolism is not great. But I've noticed that I keep getting leaner afterwards. So when you do take it, it burns fat very quickly, but you start retaining water. Now, it's not just like, oh, I'll take some diuretics and get that water off. It's like a different water retention. So it's just the body will flush off within about 3 to 7 days. But in doing so, what it does is you're very flat when you're on it. Obviously, you can't use ATP. Insulin's not going to help. You can't get glycogen into the muscles. So you end up depleting the body, and you're using stored energy because you're not producing any. So now what you're doing is once you stop and the drug's out of your system, bang in a high carb day to kind of get that thyroid functioning and leptin response back to normal. Your insulin sensitivity is going to be phenomenal after DNP. So you can actually get a rebound effect utilizing insulin post-DNP to super compensate and fill out the muscles even more. And then within that 3 to 7 day period, the water comes off. Now you're fuller, harder, and significantly leaner. Definitely not going to say I recommend it for everyone. You know, if you know what you're doing, it can be very safe. The problem is there's so much contradictory information out there, and people want to read what they want to read, and they don't understand the mechanism that's working in the body. So that's why they end up taking more and more and more. You know, I've seen people drop 14 pounds in 3 weeks or less than 3 weeks. But I had a friend use it recently. He lost 14 pounds. I think it was about 17 days. He had lost 14 pounds, and that was the point where he was holding some water, so the water dropped off, but then he filled back out. So he netted, I want to say 13 pounds fat loss. So it is quite significant. I mean, he looked completely different.
That was pure fat, just.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, so
but we definitely wouldn't recommend it, would we?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm like,
do not recommend it.
People listening to that would think, wait, mate, what's the drawback? That's fantastic. But
well,
I mean,
there is a few drawbacks.
Jeff, I'm sure there's drawbacks to it because so the number one concern would be death, of course, right? Because if you can't regulate your body temperature, you basically can cook yourself from the inside. So now you're getting this random capsule from somebody. How do you know that dosing is accurate? Right? How do you know that's 200 or 250? How do you know that's not 1,000? Right? So if you pop that and they have that dosing way off and you can't correct that, it's not worth it, right? So that's the number one problem that I see with it, right? Is one, sourcing real DNP that's accurately dosed, because you can't risk that. Because, like Rob said, death. And it's not worth dying over. Just do more cardio, watch your diet more, But for those people that have access to properly dosed DNP, at least, here's some good information. Let me explain it to you. If you're going to use it, be safe. Make sure you're following proper precautions. Like I said, I've used it a number of times over the last decade, and I've had some times where I've taken too much, and it's very scary. It's very scary because you cannot cool yourself down, to the point where, I was talking in gibberish and I had no idea, trying to take cold showers wasn't working. Just sitting there sweating all over myself. I was very happy to wake up the next day. And I was like, all right, I'm over the rough part.
Wow.
Like, I'm not going to do this again. And then, of course, I have. But the thing is, I'm a lot smarter from it, and I never look at that as, I look at that as a learning experience. I was very fortunate to make it out of that, because maybe someone else wouldn't have, and it was just, I was trying to time it, with the 36-hour half-life, I'm trying to time it every 8 to 12 hours, which is ridiculous because now it's just compounding over itself. Now that active dose is just higher and higher and higher. And that's where the problems come in. People think more is better. And it's just simply not the case. Safe is best, plain and simple. At the end of the day, yeah, sure, we can push certain compounds, but when it comes to DNP, absolutely not. And you hear these crazy people, oh, my 1,000 a day. I'm like, I won't even try that. Don't even try. They don't even put that information out there. Low dose, moderate time frame, keep hydrated. If you feel too hot or you feel something off, just stop. Let it taper out of your system, and just be smart about things, because at the end of the day, it's not worth dying over. It's really not. So it's good to get good information out there. But, by all means, I'm not going to say, oh, yeah, go use DNP. It's a great drug. I've just happened to have used it, with success through the years. And I'd rather let people understand how it works in the body so that they're safe if they use it. But if you don't have a good source or you're questioning it, don't even try it.
So where you've said to drop the carbs, Jeff, there, or if you're going to use DNP, you've got to go on a lower carb diet. Obviously, you're going to drop a ton of water or weight just from making that switch. So would you say some of the weight loss, say your pounds lost there, is due to just carbohydrate and glycogen loss through the muscle? Because I mean, for example, I've got a member of staff just on a keto diet for 2 weeks. He lost a stone, which is 14 pounds. And that's just dieting with, just switching to keto and doing some cardio. And that, I know, and he knows that at least half of that's going to throw back on as soon as he sniffs out a bit of carbohydrate, because that's just the water loss. So
it's different because you can visually see the change, because it burns fat so quickly that you're actually retaining a substantial amount of water. So the weight's coming off, but I mean, you're looking quite bloated, so, I understand, water coming out of the muscle, and being flat, but it's still burning the fat at such a rate that when the muscles fill back out, you're not down in actual muscle size, but you're still down in that fat, right?
So you look flat on DNP, but you look bloated, but you retain water.
Yeah, and it's different for everyone. So when you burn fat, anyone that's heavier, say you get like bigger love handles. Well, as the fat's going down, it starts getting squishy, starts getting water, and then it starts slowly tightening as you know. So when fat is burnt, water takes its place. So it's going to vary from person to person. I've seen some people use DNP, and I mean they look like a bloated mess. And then once they fill back out and drop that water, I mean, boom. I mean, it's literally a night and day difference. So it wouldn't be like simply dropping on a keto diet, because as soon as you start reintroducing carbs, the weight's going to go back up. Now, the same thing with DNP, but it's a much different visual look because the muscles are filling out a lot more and there won't be any subcutaneous water being held. It's all being held within the muscle. So you'll actually get more vascular, you'll get a lot harder looking, and you'll be significantly leaner, much different than just dropping on keto. Because if you're doing keto and you have high water and high sodium, I mean, you can stay actually pretty full. So, you're not losing that same fullness. It's a different type of fullness that you're losing on the keto, but you can remedy that with just increased water and sodium. I did keto for my 2014 show for 6 months, and people couldn't believe that I was doing keto because I was always full, I was always hard, and I was always vascular. And that's because high water, high sodium. Right? Same thing, if you want to get a pump in the gym, and you're having lower carbs, increase that sodium. Maybe take some MCT oil before you go. And keep that water high. I mean, you'll get ridiculous pumps, man.
And one other side effect I've heard from DNP is it makes you feel like horrific, like terrible, tired, grumpy, or like just having a bad day on it. Is that right? Or
well, because you have no energy, you're drained, right? So, but again, it's dose dependent and it's different person to person. So it's different than just being tired. Like if you didn't sleep, it's just a really drained feeling because you don't have energy production, right? So walking up a flight of stairs is a chore. Standing too long is a chore. It's not that you're necessarily tired. It's just you have no energy. So depending upon how that person handles that, you're definitely gonna feel like crap. You're not gonna feel good because you have no energy. And that's why, lower dose is better because you won't have as drastic a side effects from that. When you push the dose so high, I mean, you'll be hardly able to get up out of bed. You'll be hard pressed to walk 3 feet without and sweating all over yourself. Wow. But at 1 a day, you might not even feel a heat increase the first week. But it's still working. So it's just one of those things where the side effects, at low dose can be controlled. And then it's just basically your temperament, how you handle being tired.
Okay. All right. So what would you rate as your number one fat burner? Would that be up there or would you put something ahead of that?
Honestly, I mean, personal choice, I like DNP over like say clenbuterol because I get a lot of side effects from clenbuterol. I get headaches instantly. I know there's a cardiac strain with clenbuterol. And I hate the shaky feeling. I get super shaky with it. It's effective. But
yeah, but I get super wanks with clenbuterol. Super wanks. Absolutely amazing. It's amazing. I'm even going to put my mum on some. I've totally decided to now.
Well, that's that jitteriness, yeah. It helps out.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing.
I'm the energy for that.
I don't even need a washing machine anymore to sit on. It's great. It's amazing.
Go on. So you've got before Rob pipes up, you got. So what would you say is number one? Because I would probably say T3 is it works the best in that it works for literally everyone I've ever seen use it, and you don't have hardly any side effects in how you feel.
T3, I like T3 quite a bit. I think people need to learn more about T3 instead of just piling it on, because there's so many just misinformation on that as well. For example, if you're starting with just 12.5, that's pointless. Start right with 25 because your body produces 25 micrograms a day. If you're taking in 12.5, you're shutting off your natural production of 25 for what? For 12.5. I mean, that makes no sense. You know, so I also don't believe in really going over, 50. I see these girls, at like 100 micrograms a day. I'm like, what are you doing? You're going to have massive shutdown after that, and then they wonder, oh, why is this, why am I rebounding after this show? Why is this happening? Why is that happening? It's like, well, because your T3, I mean, your thyroid just out of control. So, low dose T3, big fan of that. I think 25 micrograms is great. For some people, actually running it year round at 25, if you're competing at a high level and you're on a fair amount of gear year round, 25 micrograms a day is going to help with nutrient partitioning, and it's going to keep your metabolism in the body in check. And then you just bump it up slightly. Something most people really don't consider though too is T4, especially with growth hormone. Basically growth hormone's going to increase T3 and shut down T4, right? So yeah, it's great to bring in some T3, but of course, you still want balance between your T4, T3. So now if you're on growth hormone and you're lowering your T4 levels, it would make sense to bump up T4 before you bump up your T3 dosing. So that way you're not just compiling T3, that, and then your T4 is still plummeted, right? You still want balance between the two. But T3 is a great compound. And again, if you're okay with using clenbuterol, the two together are phenomenal. I personally don't like it. I almost prefer the ECA stack over clenbuterol, just because, personally I don't get the headaches and I don't get the jitteriness. And it's been time proven effective for decades. But I mean, I also believe in tapering off T3, but structuring it where you're cutting it in half until you get to 25 micrograms. There's no sense cutting that in half again, like I said, because if you're taking in 12.5, you're just shutting off your natural production. So it's kind of counterproductive there. So if you get up to, if you're like way behind and you bump up to like say 75, then you start tapering it down by 12.5, slowly post show. So that way, the body can regulate after that.
And what's the longest you would say someone to stay on any of them fat burners for, like, health?
I mean, that's going to vary from person to person. I know some very large bodybuilders that, like I said, they stay on T3 year round at 25 micrograms because they feel it's quite useful for them. But clenbuterol, I don't like using that longer than say like 6 weeks. I don't find that you need to taper on and off like they suggest. I think that slowly increasing it over time is more beneficial. And I think people take too much of it and they increase it too quickly. If you're taking it and you're basically shaking like this, well, your body's still not used to it. Your body regulates in homeostasis, right? So if you're like this, and then you start getting a little bit shaky, okay, maybe bump it up. Same thing with T3 dosing. If you're tracking your body temperature daily prior to taking it, and so you have a baseline body temperature, and you take T3, it's going to raise it up slightly. Well, you'll never have to raise that dosing until that body temperature drops back down to baseline, because that's when your body gets used to it again. So there's ways to keep everything in check. But the problem is you get a lot of these coaches that are like, okay, well, this day we're going to increase this. This week we'll increase this. I mean, they'll give you a 16-week prep. They'll have you T3 and cleanse lined out the whole way. And well, how can you do that? It's going to vary from person to person based on how they metabolize the drug, how they react to the drug. So, you know, you can't just give everybody this plan. Hey, this is what it says, just do this. You know, you have to tailor it to that person and how they're responding. And only then, you know, increase it appropriately.
Sweet.
Do you use any over-the-counter fat burners, or do you rate any? You know, things like, I don't know, feverfew, things like that. Is there any herbs, etc. you would use, natural stuff that you think is quite good?
I mean, really, the only over-the-counter fat burner that I like would be yohimbine hydrochloride.
Yohimbe, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean that's obviously effective working on the alpha-2 receptors, especially, you know, with women, you know, where you know, your stubborn body fat has a lot higher amount of the alpha receptors in them. So I mean, it's a very useful tool. And again, you know, used strategically in a prep. I mean, it's great because we have all these tools, but a lot of times people throw everything all at once. You know, so it's a lot better. It's like, okay, well, let's maybe add some T3, see how that's going. Okay, now maybe let's add in maybe a little ECA. Okay, well, that's not really doing much. Maybe we'll bump it up. We'll bring in some clenbuterol. Okay, that's working. All right, well, we still have some hard fat deposits that we need to get off. All right, let's try bringing in some yohimbine. And yohimbine, you know, you have to start low and you build up, right? It's not like, you know, the effective dose is actually fairly high. And a lot of people actually don't even take close to what they need to. But it's because they try to take too much at once, right from the get-go. And it can make you feel horrible if everyone's taking too much yohimbine.
Oh, yeah, totally.
It's just an awful feeling. So, and, you know, if you stagger that throughout the day as well, right, you know, no one's expected. If you need to work up to, say 30 milligrams, you know, there's no way you're taking that or even half of that all at once. You know, it's got to be structured throughout the day, you know, to be effective, you know. So
is that another accumulator? Is that another accumulator, yohimbine?
Not so much. It's a matter of getting to the appropriate dose based on how you can handle it. And that's going to take a lot longer for some people. Because the effective dose, I forget what it is exactly. I want to say it's around like 2 milligrams per kilogram or something like that. So, you know, it gets quite high. You know, I know for someone like my size, it's probably around like 25 milligrams a day, or maybe even slightly higher. But I mean, there's no way I would take that, or even half of that all at once. I mean, I think the most I was taking it was like 7.5 3 times a day, because I tried taking 10 and it just made me feel like crap. But it
makes you feel sick, and you just sweat through your t-shirts.
Yeah, I mean,
you're dizzy. You're tripping. You're proper tripping.
Yeah, I mean, it's horrible. I mean, you're just like, oh my god, I feel gross. I'm all sweaty.
Yeah.
You know, and you just, you know, you don't want to do anything. And it's just like, you're just like a bad crap at that point. And I mean, you know, that's counterintuitive to what we want to do. We want to be able to function at the highest level we can, you know, during prep, right? I mean, if we can't train, if we can't do our cardio, if we can't do that stuff, then what's the point in taking anything if it's going to set us back?
Yeah, I think the key to learn from all of the fat burners is you want to cook, not burn or fry. You know, you want to just have a nice little grill going and not like just jump straight into the frying pan. Because if I'm listening, sitting back there and listening to that, there's so many like horrible side effects and horrible things that come along with the benefits. It's like very off-putting if you're thinking of using them sorts of things. But if anyone has used them and you can relate to them properly, like, I mean, the yohimbine feeling is one of the most uncomfortable like feelings. In your own skin's annoying you, you know, because it's all clammy. And that's why I said that the T3 seems like a better option. You don't really feel a thing from it. It just works. With the ephedrine, some people sink or swim on that, you know, mentally. You get a right good buzz and you get fantastic cardio sessions or workouts, but then you crash really hard and it can put you in a bit of a weird spot sometimes. Like mentally, you can feel quite like almost anxious. So I'm not quite sure. Depends how that works with people. I mean, there was some reports on the ECA would be so receptive on your adrenals that it could also raise cortisol because of that, and could actually eat muscle, as well as the fact that it helps, or supposedly helps burn fat. I mean, my experience with it really is it just absolutely suppresses your appetite, as you don't want to eat more, and it makes you buzzed out your nut. So it's quite good if you're hanging, but sometimes, you know, it's like you borrow money from a bank on a loan, you've got to pay that back at some point, and with interest. So that energy gets taken away and then some. So you might suffer later in the day. I mean, I've had years and years and years of leg workouts, and I had to put them on a Sunday, and they had to be fueled by ephedrine and caffeine. And that was all right, because for the rest of the day, I was just going to doss on the sofa. But it was all worth it for that set of squats, you know. And now if I do that, I've got two little brats jumping on me, trying to drag me down swings. And now I can't take it, unfortunately. So the joys of fatherhood. So going off of fat burners in and looking at other sort of compounds. So I think one of the other big words that people want to talk about or use, or the people will exploit anyway, and you hear kind of mad stories. And I think it was really piloted by Milos Sarcev, is insulin. I mean, I think he brought that to the bodybuilding table, and it's got, you know, lots of bad press. But I think it's, you know, one of the reasons why bodybuilders have jumped so far in mass since the days of Arnold. And I think really it's kind of got a really big role to play in intra-workout drinks. You know, I think there's a lot of intra-workout carbs, and all this huge amount of carbs are really beneficial, but that's because what people aren't telling you is because they use insulin prior to that. And I think that's the real benefit of the intra-carbs, is because you need carbohydrates to balance insulin. And then it's a fantastic shuttle for everything that goes on and goes into that drink and helps with recovery whilst you train. I think my view with the clients that I train is, if you're going to, I think it's great for suppressing cortisol through training, but you only need a minimal amount of carbohydrate to do that. And these like super compensatory doses of carbohydrates can only be tolerated and not make you fat if you've got something like insulin injected to help shuttle or to take them on board. I mean, what's your takes on insulin? Where would you say the best sort of role to play is? Because, you know, bodybuilders being nut jobs that we are, and we want to do everything more extreme, is they'll use fast acting either side of training. It used to be just post training, now it's either side. And then people also put like something like Lantus, like an all dayer through from the morning onwards, so that they're slightly, you know, using, well, I mean, like Milos' thought on it when I spoke with him was that your pancreas, which obviously secrete insulin, and they get absolutely, you know, abused by these high spikes of glucose that people are having in these post-workout shakes, are far healthier if you're doing exogenous insulin prior, because then your pancreas take a break because you're using a drug to create the same effect. What's your thoughts on that, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is you know, insulin kind of gets a bad rap because, again, people, they're using it improperly. So insulin in and of itself isn't going to make you fat. You know, you get fat because of all the excess calories that people, you know, consume while taking insulin. Same thing with, you know, for the longest time, it was, oh, you can't take any fat with insulin, or it's going to get stored right away. But there's a lot of evidence to show that's, you know, not the case. What it comes down to is basically timing it properly. And not only timing it properly is not using so much. You know, again, more isn't better. You know, it's a very useful tool because, you know, it's going to shuttle nutrients far better than we can do on our own. You know, of course, you know, the pancreas is gonna secrete the insulin, but like you said, when we take exogenous insulin, it helps to alleviate the stress of the pancreas. So what it does is, in essence, you know, it allows us to keep some insulin sensitivity. But the problem is you have all these people and they're like, oh, I'm going to take this. I'm going to take, 250 grams of carbs and 15 IUs of insulin. And I mean, that's just absurd. Just because it's going to shuttle nutrients doesn't mean it's going to shuttle every single thing that you give to it, so you have to keep perspective, using it pre-workout is phenomenal, but, you have to have the nutrients to make it useful, and you have the proper training as well. You get these people that go in. I mean, if you're training for half an hour, I mean, you don't need pre-workout insulin. You don't need an intra-carb drink. It's only a half-hour workout. You can take it perfectly fine getting you post-workout. But this day and age, no one's really doing super short workouts for the most part anyways. Even if they're doing lower volume, higher frequency, the workouts are still being, fairly long and fairly labor intensive. So, insulin becomes a great tool pre-workout when training is appropriate, because it allows you to now shuttle a lot more nutrients to the muscles. And like Milos would always say, now when you're working out, you have nutrient-rich blood instead of just empty blood, right? So now you're actually getting those nutrients to those muscles that are being worked a lot quicker, right? So now the recovery process is sped up quite substantially, and then, a lot of people would take it just post, but quite frankly, the way I look at it is if you take it pre-workout, it's going to help shuttle the nutrients. And then, with proper training and hard training, your body's going to be receptive to carbohydrates regardless on its own. But if you're taking it pre-workout, it's still going to be active for your post-workout anyways. So your GLUT4 and your mTOR are going to help shuttle the nutrients because those have been activated through the hard training. But that insulin, even though it has an onset of, if you take like a Humalog, the onset's, 15, 20 minutes, half hour, but it's still going to be active for a few hours after that. So it's still going to be active in the body post-training. And then what you can do is you can take some growth hormone post-workout and take advantage of both the carbs and the exogenous growth hormone to release more IGF-1. And that's where I like to use it personally. It's useful when you do high carb days or refeeds, again, to make sure that you're shuttling nutrients. But again, I mean, 2 to 5 IUs is plenty. We're not shuttling, we're not using 10 IUs multiple times per day. It's just not necessary. And there's some other uses for it as far as controlling blood glucose and clearing some blood glucose as needed. So it's a very useful drug for both shuttling nutrients to the muscles, but also clearing some blood glucose if needed.
Cool. So any other questions there, Z, on your list?
We want to touch on SEO. A lot of these things I've not actually done myself, so I'm sort of feeling my way through. We were just going to get Jeff's take on prep, really. So one thing I did want to say is just post a few scenarios in your direction, if that's right. I mean, do you guys had anything to add? And then I'll just a couple of scenarios, because we are just going over an hour now, so we just wanted to post a few scenarios. So say, for instance, have you ever been in a situation where you've had a look at a client and said, no, mate, you're not going to be ready, you're too far out of a competition, and what sort of response do you get?
Actually, it happened quite recently. One of my clients, he's a natural client, and he had some personal things come up. He got into a car accident, and I'm like, look, you're behind. I mean, you're not going to make it. He's like, no, I'll do whatever I can. I'll do whatever I have to. And I'm like, it's on you. I was like, we can try to push things. There's a lot less that we can do as far as pushing when a client's natural, because they're not going to retain the muscle size.
So can I push you for specifics? What was off about him? Looking at him, what was he lacking? Or
detail. He just was behind. Because there was a time frame where he wasn't getting his cardio in. I had him down to, he competes probably around like 210, 215. I had him looking pretty decent, around like 223, 226. And then all of a sudden, each check-in, he's in the mid 230s. I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, something's wrong. And he was in a car accident. He's like, well, I'm stressed and this. I'm like, well, stress doesn't make you cause you to gain 10 pounds. So I was like, look, we could try this, but I'm like, look, it's not going to work. So we did what we could. I mean, he's like, no, I want to compete. I'm like, all right, well, it's on you. I'm going to just know that you're behind, and I'm telling you that I don't think you'll be able to make it. He's like, no, I'll do whatever I have to. He ended up competing. He took third, but he was quite off for himself, quite off from where I would want him to be,
But he placed, so.
Yeah, he placed third.
He placed, so how is
Yeah, but natural shows, it's a lot different than what we're used to seeing. He did well because he's a bigger natural guy. He's black, so he's got rounder muscles. He's got a good frame. He's got good legs for a natural guy. But he wasn't conditioned. And you see these natural guys in the pro ranks because he's got his pro card. He's got 2 pro cards as natural. But you get these pro guys. I mean, they are shredded, and I'm like, you're soft. You're soft, right? And especially for him because his abs are like one of the last things to come in. So I mean, when he's standing up there and he's in a front relax, it's very smooth. But we pulled all the tricks. I mean, I'll give him credit. I mean, he held his own and he put in the work. But it's not the type of conditioning that I would want him to be in, and it's not the type of conditioning that he wanted to be in. But I'll give him the credit that he pushed through and did what he could. But the matter of fact was, I had told him, like, look, you want to be ready, and luckily he's like, well, I'll do what I have to. He rose to the challenge, but at the end of the day, it didn't pan out, how we anticipated. So, but even though we got third, it's still, you still got to look at it and be like, you weren't at your best. And each one of his shows, he was always at his best. So it was a big step back.
And that obviously can help knock him off his path, really, if you're not.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working with him for a long time and we're friends. So, we talked after the show, and, I didn't want him to be discouraged or anything like that. I mean, and he's killing it in the gym now. And he's like, all right, he's like, if I'd have just put in the effort that I did when you told me I wasn't going to be ready, he's like, I would have been ready ahead of time. I was like, it should have been that way the whole time. So now he's putting in the effort to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Cool. Now, say for instance, someone's gone into a competition, they're a couple of days out, and they've just, for whatever reason, they're just looking flat as a pancake, like there's nothing in the muscles. How are you pumping them up if they've just lost all, they're not holding any water, they're not holding anything?
Well, going into the show, I track blood glucose, so it allows me to actually kind of know what's going on. So I can tell whether it's going to be a carbohydrate issue or if it's going to be a sodium and water issue based off of where the blood glucose is. And that's why we track it during prep. So that way I can see how they're responding to carbohydrates. So hypothetically, if they're looking soft and they're looking watery, and their blood glucose is very high, that means it's a sodium and water issue. It means they have excess blood glucose floating around that's not getting into the muscles. If they're looking soft and watery because they're flat, but their blood glucose is very low, it means they're just flat and they need some carbohydrates. So it's a good tool to help, because sometimes our eyes can deceive us. If we look at someone like, man, they're flat and we don't know what's wrong, and they're just holding a little bit of water, and we're like, you know what? We'll give them a diuretic. We'll give them some carbs. That'll fix it. Well, that might not be the case depending on where their blood glucose is. So it could pull more water out of their muscle, make them look a lot flatter. It could give them more blood glucose, so now they have even more floating around in their system. So now it's a useful tool when you're utilizing it. You understand what's going on. To kind of balance out that, and hopefully that can happen. But I mean, it's still depending on each person, and hopefully by that time you have a good grasp on what's going on with their blood glucose, how they're utilizing the carbohydrates, and how fast they're clearing it at that point. So it would be based off of their blood glucose reading, how I would respond to that.
Awesome. Now, now this one's a bit cheeky. I thought I'd slide it in there. It looks like we've got a bit of time, so roll with me if you will. So you got this potential client. His name's Z. He's thinking about competing. He's about. I'm gonna send you a quick
Show us your belly. Oh no!
He's right now.
It's Magic Mike all over again. Oh no, that's just scary. That's just scary. That's just put me off life. That is. I'm not going to be able
why
to
you're
wait
still
for a
single,
week
Z.
now.
Right there.
Oh, no.
It's not necessarily me. It could be anyone. It could be anyone. And
Could be your mum, definitely.
he's thinking of competing. How long would you say he's got to take? What you saying he's got sort of like? What sort of gear has he got to get on?
25 years.
See, so looking at this hypothetical default.
First of all, that he needs a tan.
Definitely.
Yeah, first things first, we'll put you on some melanotan so we can get rid of that pasty skin.
Yeah, so pasty. I thought he was Irish. That's how pasty he was.
But the whole thing is basically, I'd start off saying what you're doing now.
Yeah.
First and foremost, you can't direct someone unless you know what they're currently doing.
Yeah.
So, looking at Mr. Z, and he says, "This is how I look. This is what I'm doing." So it's like, okay, well, that produces that look, right?
All right.
So now we have to make corrections to fix that, to get that stage ready. So it's very dependent on what they're doing, what their history is, right? So, what their gear use is. If they've been cycling on and off for 10 years, this is a lot different than if it's their first cycle. If their diet's just complete crap, obviously that's going to drastically change. But at the same time, if someone's just eating garbage all the time.
I train like an animal, and like I'm a beast in the gym, and I've not really done any gear, but I'm sort of thinking of stepping into it. So.
See, so the way I look at it is this. Okay, so if you're training hard, so the issue is clearly diet, right? Because if you're training hard enough, then you should be able to maintain a leaner physique.
Yeah.
So the diet is not following pursuit of the goal. So it may not be drastically off, but I mean, it could be as simple as, you're taking too many energy calories at a time frame when you're not using them. You could be overloading the system with too many carbohydrates or too many fats. So it's just a matter of, finding out what exactly is being done, to structure that and to remedy the situation.
So you're talking like put my carb meals around my training in times when I'm active? Is that sort of thing you're saying?
Basically, if you're taking excess energy calories and you're not utilizing them, then what's the body going to do? It's going to store them, right? So it makes sense to time nutrients because, if you're taking in carbohydrates to fuel a workout and to recover from a workout, then the body's not going to store those. It's going to be optimal for recovery for energy. If you're sitting at a desk all day, doing accounting, and you're eating carbohydrates all day, that just makes no sense. And it's going to vary from person to person, of course, based on insulin sensitivity and how they respond and how their digestion is too, So basically it would be, all right, well, what is your actual training like, right? Because, moving into prep, there's a certain amount of training volume. So it'd be like a maximum training volume for recovery. You want to train at that rate. So if that's failure for some people, it's failure for some people. But if it's like 80%, 90% for you, then that's where we need your training at, right? It's what you can recover from, right? So you could be training like a beast in the gym.
Always training.
You could be not recovering properly, right? You could be robbing yourself from optimally utilizing your foods. Cardio. Is there any cardio being done? Simple things like what would be considered NEAT, like non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So are you active during the day? Do you go for walks? Do you have a dog that you walk for half an hour a day? That's going to use calories, right? Or are you very sedentary? right? So a lot of these things come into play, but looking at your physique and saying, like, if you want to do a show in like 12 weeks, I'm like, man, we got a lot of work to do.
The guy's he's not a miracle worker. Do you know what I mean? He's not God. You know what I mean? There's just certain things he can do, but you're pushing him to his limits here, Z. Do you know what I mean? You're really hurting him here. You're killing his pride. He's like, oh, what am I going to do with this guy? Maybe if I cut off his head, he'll have a better chance.
What I always tell people is, focus on, if there's a certain show and it's within reason, then we focus on that show. But keep in mind, it's like, if you're not going to be ready for it, I'm going to recommend you don't go on stage because it's going to reflect poorly on the both of us, right? But, it's not saying I would never tell someone, hey, you can't do something unless I know for a fact, like, they can't do it. If you're like, oh, I want to do a show in 8 weeks, it's like, no, it's not going to happen. But if you're like, all right, well, there's a show, it's coming up in January. That's plenty of time. You can do a lot in that time. So it's just time dependent on what the actual goal is and being realistic about what can and can't be done. I'll always be honest. If someone's like, oh, I want to do this. I mean, if you can't, like, you can't. And it's not my job to sit here and be like, oh yeah, we can do it. You'll do a great job. Yay, yay, yay. It's my job to be real with you. Yes, you can do this. Let's get after it. Or sorry, like, there's just not enough time. Yeah. Not to deflate you and say that you can't do it. It's like, let's pick something later and let's attack that. Let's start making the progress and making the changes. And when we get in better condition, let's attack a show. Let's do it. So too many people get caught up in like one show. It's like, there's plenty of shows. If that means you got to wait a whole year, well, spend that time, do that year. Put in that work. You'll be that much better for it. There's no rush to be on stage just to be on stage. Be on stage when you're ready, but enjoy the process and the time that you're doing it, and that'll be much more beneficial, because if you go on that stage and you're not ready, it could be very defeating, and you could be like, screw this, I don't want to even work out anymore. Yeah. Or when you enjoy the process and you love what you're doing, you're like, man, I look awesome. I'm like, I feel great. Then it's like, all right, well, if I place, I place. If I don't, I know I'm in a great spot, and I know I did what I could do, and I'm just going to move forward from here. And it's a much more positive way to look at it, and a much positive way to do it, right? So it just keeping perspective on everything.
That's
awesome. To answer his question, Jeff, what are you saying?
He's basically saying it's going to take 25 years, and I'll probably be dead by the time he's going to get ready. And yeah, I will put him in men's bikini because he looks good in a bikini. Look at those tits. Cool. Look at those tits. Whoa.
What I would say is, let's talk. Give me a time frame. Give me a date. Let's get some actual pictures where I see the legs, where I see the conditioning.
Legs.
Yeah, the legs are like.
He's got legs like my sister. Honestly, it's just embarrassing. Put some stockings on, and I immediately get a hard on. It's just nothing. It's terrible, honestly.
Yeah, no, that's why I showed you the upper body.
Exactly. Oh, don't see his legs, honestly. If you saw his legs, you'll think he was a tranny. Honestly, you really would.
Well, then we just throw a wig on him, and then he can do pictures.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Then they would have him around your place, wouldn't we? That'd be great.
No, that's okay. We're gonna move. No, I mean, so last thing, we just wanted, I know you are running a company called, a prep company called Move Me in the Middle. Tell us a little bit about that, how guys can get in touch with you, where they can find you social media-wise, contact-wise.
Yeah, so we're on Facebook, Move Me in the Middle. You can email us at movemeinthemiddle@hotmail.com. I work with Ken Johnson, who is my coach, and he's been a coach for decades. He's worked with all sorts of athletes, bodybuilders, pro figure girls. So we bounce ideas off each other all the time. So we're both always learning. We're both sharing ideas. And if I have questions, I ask him. If he has questions, he asks me. You can always hit me up on social media, at Big Jeff Surette on Instagram, Jeffrey Surette on Facebook. More than happy to answer questions. Anything prep related, just shoot us an email. Like I said, movemeinthemiddle@hotmail.com. Comes to both Ken and I. You get a response right away. We have a questionnaire that we send out. to get some background information so that we can actually feel people out. And you know, first things first, you know, what's your why? You know, is it authentic? Is that the reason why you want to do it? Or is it just because you just want to do it because it's, you know, popular at the moment, right? Because we don't want to work with people that aren't committed, you know, because it's going to be a waste of time for people. But when people are very committed, you know, then it's a great working relationship between us and them, you know. So the more information we can get from them, you know, the more information we can share, and then it's just an open communication. So yeah, we're on Instagram, Move Me in the Middle, all social media. So definitely hit us up. Happy to work with anybody that's looking to just improve the way they look, improve the way they feel, you know, or if they want to compete, you know, we work with everyone.
I just wanted to say I don't want people to get mixed up with the other one, which is Moving in the Middle, which is a completely different kind of website, isn't it? I mean, because that would be terrible, wouldn't it? Could you imagine hitting them up and stuff and saying, oh, could you help me out with my prep? And they'd be going, yeah, we've got this giant strap on. It should really help you good. So, you know, make sure we get the right one. So, yes, what's it called again? Say it again. Move Me in the Middle.
In the middle.
Move Me in the Middle. Okay. Oh, that sounds. I could do that. My belly's so fat at the moment. I could definitely do that.
And Jeff, just so you can get out there, I know you've got a new venture, a food-based venture. So
yeah. So we have a meal prep company, Catered Life. You can check us out, cateredlife.com. I mean, obviously we can't send meals to you guys, but if you're ever in the Boston area, you know, we have healthier food choices. So basically, you know, we can prep for competitors, so everything's all weighed out and cooked appropriately for you. Or you can order just off the menu items. And we have an actual storefront in Beverly in the Cumming Center. You know, so if you're in the area, you know, stop on by 100 building at Cumming Center, Suite 127Q. We have meals ready to go all the time. You know, like I said, you can order online, cateredlife.com. Food's fantastic. I mean, I'm a little bit biased, of course, but you know, you certainly won't be disappointed.
Cool. And I know we're winding up, but before we do, I want you to, an American, to hear Robbie's 20 questions.
Oh man!
Apparently he's not
good.
Well, I haven't got them because I'm at my mum's at the moment, but I can remember some of them off the top of my head.
Yes.
So we'll give it a go.
He does a quick fire round here, Jeff, and you just got to throw out what comes to mind.
This is going to be dangerous because he's not got a script. So
I ain't got my script, so it could just go. It could end really badly. So, but we'll find out, Jeff. So I'll just ask you quick fire questions.
Sure.
What's your star sign?
What's my what?
Star sign.
Oh, like zodiac sign?
That's
Scorpio.
the one. Scorpio. Are you a jealous person?
Typically, no, but
Okay.
I can be.
Let's just see. Do you like it hot or cold?
Cold.
Okay. Do you like it fast or slow?
Depends what we're talking about.
It all depends on what you're thinking.
We'll go slow.
Car. Let's go car. Fast or slow?
Fast.
Okay. Chocolate, black or white?
Black.
nice.
Yeah, obviously. Red or blue?
Red.
Pink or purple?
Pink.
Pink or brown?
Pink.
Missed that. He's missed that in America.
I know. I know. I got him on that one, but he'll work it out later. Anyway, what else have we got?
I know where you're at.
He said that because he's got his hands under the table, so I can't see his hands. I bet you it's purple. Right. What else was it? I can't even remember. What was the other ones? I can't remember.
Favorite movie?
Oh yeah. What's your favorite movie? What sort of movies do you like? Give us a few.
I don't really have an actual favorite movie. I mean, I like action films, but you know, I'll watch anything from a chick flick to a documentary.
Okay.
I watch a lot of movies, so I don't have a particular favorite. I just don't like.
You don't like what? Sorry.
I just don't like bad movies. I like the superhero movies coming out, like the Avengers and stuff. Like,
all right, fair enough.
About all those.
I'll just say you like Titanic then, for your fans.
I like
what
Blonde or brunette?
Yeah, blonde or brunette. There we go.
Blonde.
Blonde. Okay. Let's have a think. What's my last one? Guys, can you remember my last question?
I could.
Can you remember,
think
Z?
of a few. Mate, you fire them quickly, and I'm trying to not laugh. That's usually my thing.
Okay, well, let's have a think. Anal or oral? What do you prefer?
What's that?
Anal or oral? Which one do you prefer?
Giving or taking?
It's entirely up to you. I should have said give or receive. Okay, here we go. Give or receive.
Give both.
Give. Okay, and anal or oral?
Give both.
Give both. Excellent. That's good. I'm definitely having you round.
Oh,
Thanks for that. That was good.
I don't even know how we can end
Nice
on that
sportsmanship.
note. That we can't even end on that note. It's like, cheers, Rob. Cheers.
Anytime.
Actually, since like we just want to just a little question just to round it off. I'm not sure what you might know a bit more about this situation than us. Have you obviously heard about the Rich Piana situation? Do you know a bit about it? What's your take on it? What's your thoughts on it? Because we've obviously heard a bit, but
I mean, my take is this. Despite what you think of him, you should think that hopefully he gets better. The whole thing is, whether it was a drug overdose, whether it was just him losing his balance, hitting his head, I don't know. From what I've heard, he ended up falling in the bathroom and ended up hitting his head, which would, coincide with, putting him into a medically induced coma would be to allow the brain to heal. So, I mean, that would coincide with the story. But, there's so much speculation around everything. I mean, I've met Rich a number of times. He's a very nice man. I definitely, whether you agree with him, the way he does things or whatever, I just wish him the best, and I hope he recovers because, at the end of the day, why wish ill will on anyone? Even if it was an overdose, don't castrate the man. Nobody's perfect. Things happen. You don't know what's going on in his life. So why judge him? So even if it's an overdose and something happened, don't hate on him for it. Just say, hey, you know what? He's another brother in iron. Just hopefully he gets better. But like I said, from what I hear, he had fallen and banged his head, and then he was in the medically induced coma to let the brain relax and heal. But from what I've heard, he seems to be improving. So, hopefully, the best of luck to him, best of luck to his family, getting through it all. So. Cool.
Well, thank you for that, Jeff. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Guys, hopefully you guys have taken a lot from that brilliant guest to have so much knowledge shared. Guys, as ever, the link for the YouTube video will be on the summary of the podcast. We're going to break out for sponsors.
Just before you do, Z, let me just throw in a little self-plug.
Go on.
For me. So I'm doing a seminar with my good wife, Georgia. That's in 2 weeks. That's at the Muscle Finesse big showroom, and that's in Swansea. They've just opened a new diner, big American diner there. So we're doing a seminar on everything Jess just told you. I'm going to write down and copy and repeat. And
on what date? What date, Neil? Let everyone know what date, please.
So that's Sunday, the 27th of August. It's from 12 till 3. And you can call the Muscle Finesse store in Swansea and book your tickets, or you can drop me a message at neil@crunchgym.co.uk. There's a PayPal to the same address to pay for them up front. But we're going to cover everything from bodybuilding through prep to off-season and bikini version of, because Georgia done bikini for years and years. And then we're going to stop and break for lunch. And then the lunch, because it's an American diner, is a food challenge, because it had to be, because Crunch Gym, we're all about food challenges. And so we got a burger stack. So whoever eats it the fastest times, I'm glad Robbie's not coming, but whoever eats it the fastest time gets a ticket free, or they get £50 worth of supplements, just as a bit of fun. So he's going to film the whole lot. So you're going to get some YouTube fame, and you'll be up there against, what's that guy's name? Angry. What's his name, Z?
Furious Pete. Furious
Pete. See if you can take him to Pete. And then and we'll carry on in the afternoon, and we'll go over posing and basically everything, including how to structure your own training plan and prep yourselves, and where coaches can come in. And then finally, at the end of the seminar, everyone gets a big whopping discount to spend in the store on all the supplements I've touted. Ta-da!
Excellent.
Lovely.
Guys, so we'll see you there in a couple of weeks' time. That's in Swansea. We'll put the details in the summary, so you'll get the links to all the details there. But once again, thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you soon.
Lovely,
Thank you,
Jeff.
Jeff.
Lovely. Good job.
Jeff.
All right, thanks a
Well
lot.
done.